Has anyone done Pitocin without an epidural?
Hey everyone, it's Dr. Bryce, OBGYN resident and mom of five. I love this creator's questions and concerns, so let's get into it. As always, please comment below with any questions that you might have. What was your experience like with an epidural, without an epidural, with Pitocin, without Pitocin, as well as sharing with your friends who might find this interesting. So this creator goes on to sort of ask questions about what it's like to have Pitocin with and without an epidural and what kind of an epidural is like. Her goal, she says, is to possibly get induced, but maybe do that without an epidural. So quick rundown of my deliveries. I've had my first, I went into natural labor. I did end up getting an epidural with him. My second, I went into natural labor on my own. I labored on my own. I did not have an epidural. My third was a little bit difficult. I did start contracting on my own, but because he'd been shifting positions, we decided to break my water early. So I was ruptured around 1 centimeter with him just to keep his head down where we wanted it to be. We were worried about him flipping positions again. I ended up stalling out of labor and needed Pitocin in order to deliver him. So I had Pitocin and delivered him a couple hours after starting Pitocin, but I did that without an epidural. My fourth, I went into natural into labor on my own, and I did not have an epidural with her. A very quick, short delivery, very uncomplicated. And then my last, um, he also had not settled into the pelvis and had been transverse and breech at different points. So when he was settled into my pelvis head down at 39 weeks, I made the decision along with my OB to have an elective induction of labor at 39 weeks. So I came in, we did Cytotec overnight, and then we started Pitocin and ruptured in the morning. And I did all of that up until what turned out to be transition when I gave up and I said, oh, fine, I'll just have the epidural. I'm going to be five forever. And my nurse said, no, you're probably not five. Do you want me to check you? And I said, no, don't check me. I'm sure I'm five. I've had all these babies before. I know my body. Listen to your nurse. They know. The nurses always know. Trust your nurses. She was right. As soon as they were finished pushing the numbing medicine, I said that I was ready to push, and we had a baby within 5 minutes. And I never got to really appreciate that epidural. So I've done it kind of all the ways. What do I talk to my patients about, though? Because my experience is not everyone's experience. So, in general, my personal experience with Pitocin is that your contractions are more regular and they do tend to come a little bit, they can come a little bit closer together. But in general, they're regular. And what's nice is that for me personally, I was not always on the monitor when I was laboring on my own. When you're on Pitocin, we almost always have you on continuous monitoring. So my husband was able to watch the tocometer. So when those contractions were coming and going, you can't truly tell the intensity when you're externally monitored. We can go into all that later. But he was at least able to tell when I was starting to have a contraction, sort of when it was hitting its peak and when it was coming down. So he was really able to help coach me. And why is that important? Why was him being able to see that and help coach me really beneficial? So what we have is the pain anxiety cycle. So the more pain that you have, the more anxiety you have, the more anxiety you have, the more pain you have. And it sort of feeds off one another and it can just spiral out of control. So what I tell my patients is that I will do whatever I can to try and control your pain and help you. But the thing that you can do to control your pain is to control your anxiety. And if you feel like your anxiety is getting out of control, that may be the time to go ahead and get that epidural. So if you have a contraction and by the time that contraction ends, you're worried about when that next contraction is going to come, that's the time to start thinking about whether or not you want an epidural. The creator also goes on to ask about whether or not you can turn the um, epidural down. Yes. In our institution, we don't actually turn the epidural itself down. We just don't give you extra medicine. So we don't hit the button to give you an extra dose of medicine when we're getting close to delivery. That can help you with pushing, but we also do our best to try and coach you. The other thing that is an option is to consider turning the Pitocin either down or off once you're in active labor. There is some literature showing that once you're past 6 centimeters, and you're having regular contractions, you may be able to turn the Pitocin either down or off, but that's a conversation to have with either your midwife or your doctor about what is their preference, what do they recommend for your particular situations. So at the end of the day, The biggest thing, if your goal is to not have an epidural, is to figure out how to break that pain anxiety cycle so that you can control if you so by controlling your anxiety, therefore keeping your pain at a lower level. A couple other things that I have done. I also took the Hypno Baby course. That was really helpful. I found the mantras and the visualization. I come from a sports background. My dad is a college soccer coach. I really found that the visualizations and the different techniques that they taught in that class very helpful. Again, it's not for everyone, but it was helpful for me just as far as the visualization and thinking through and keeping calm. And then I also have an amazing partner, my husband, keeps me giggling and laughing in between contractions when I'm in labor. So that's another thing that's really, really helpful. So if you do not have a partner or a support person, and you're able to get a doula, they can be a huge asset if your goal is to not have an epidural, because they are really good at keeping you calm, which is, in my opinion, one of the most important things if you do not want to have an epidural, breaking that pain anxiety cycle. What questions do you guys have about my deliveries or what it's like to have an epidural? When do we recommend them? What about Pitocin? When to get it, when to not, why, all those things. I'm happy to answer any of your questions. Please type them in the comments below, and I look forward to hearing from all of you soon.